Kansas City is not for everybody, and in this video I'm going to be going over 15 things that you should definitely know before moving to Kansas City. Stay tuned. So we're going to do a game show style. I downloaded this Spin the Wheel app, and in this app I have 15 things that you should definitely know about, some good, some not so good. So number one on our list, we have water bills. So this can be viewed as a negative for sure, because the average water bill in Kansas City is $120 per month. Let that resonate for a minute. The national average is $45 a month. So why is that? So back in the early 2000s, it was determined that Kansas City's sewer system was severely outdated. So the EPA stepped in and federally mandated Kansas City to upgrade all of their sewer systems. So starting in 2010 all the way to 2035, Kansas City is going to be updating their sewer system. And that means higher water bills for Kansas Cityans. All right, we spun that wheel. The second thing on our list is the economy. Now, this is a good thing. Kansas City has a 3.2% unemployment rate, which is below the national average of 3.5%. Now, we're seeing historically low unemployment across the board, but the job market here in Kansas City is strong. Some of the biggest industries in Kansas City are healthcare, where we have over 83,000 jobs, tech, where we've had 64 startups open since 2017, and that one was a little surprising to me, but I used to work for a tech company here in Kansas City, so if you're moving from the West Coast and you're looking for a tech job, we definitely have those in Kansas City. And manufacturing is obviously a big one here in Kansas City as well. They've recently broke ground on the Panasonic EV plant that's going to open in DeSoto, Kansas, and bring over 4,000 new jobs to the Kansas City Metro. Number 3 on the list, we have new construction under 500,000. And for this, we're going to take a look at some statistics for new construction homes. So what I mean by that is there are few houses being constructed for new construction homes under 500,000 within the Kansas City metro area. And if we look at the median sales price for new construction, we can see that. So the median sales price for new construction homes is $537,000, and the average sale price is over $600,000. So there are very few homes being constructed under that $500,000 price point within the Kansas City metro area. In 2021, we had historically low inventory and supply for new construction homes, but you can see what's happened over the last 3 years as interest rates have climbed and homes have become more and more unaffordable. Well, then it makes sense that homes over $500,000 are going to be impacted the most. So for me personally, I think that builders in Kansas City are in trouble because they pigeonholed themselves into this higher price point, and we can see that the inventory levels have risen at an astronomical rate over the past 3 years. Next up on our list, we have the roads and the potholes, and this is something that gets brought up a lot on our Instagram page. So make sure you go check out our Instagram page. It's Moving to KC. We do a lot of new development news and real estate related content on that page, but a lot of the comments that I get over there are people saying, why are they doing all of this new development when our roads are in such bad shape? Now, I did some research on this, and Kansas City ranks in the middle of the worst roads in the country, with 27% of the roads in poor condition. Kansas City is throwing a ton of money, $40 million in fact, on resurfacing and repairing the roads. And just for this year in 2023, Kansas City is on pace to resurface and repair over 470 miles of roadways, which is more than the previous 3 years combined. So while I know that the roads aren't perfect, they're definitely far from the worst roads in the country. The next one on our list is the houseless population. So this is another thing that I see commented on a lot on my Instagram page, is we need to address the homeless situation here in Kansas City. So we've seen a rise in the homeless community, especially here in Kansas City, since the beginning of the pandemic. In fact, before the pandemic, we only had around 500 people who were houseless in the metro, and today we have around 2,000. So it's definitely been impacted severely since 2020, and I think the lack of affordability is really stoking the fire. But to me, it's more about what is the city doing about it. And Kansas City actually came out with this Zero KC plan, which is their strategic plan to end homelessness within the metro. So you can go here and read the plan specifically, but I will say that right when I moved here in 2020, we saw this huge spike in the houseless community across the metro. But when you look at the statistics and the fact that our houseless community has tripled over the past 3 years, it's going to take some time to figure out a plan, and it's good to see that Kansas City is responding and they are considering ways of how we can help this community. Humidity. So overall, I don't really mind the weather, but the humidity was the one thing that I was dreading moving back to Kansas City in 2020, because I lived in Denver for nearly 10 years where there is almost zero humidity. And coming back to a place like this was a little jarring, because we get several days throughout the summer where it's 100% humidity and you walk outside and you're just instantly sweating, or you hop in the shower and get out and feel like you can never get dry. And a lot of people get here to Kansas City not realizing just how humid it is, and I would definitely suggest visiting in the summer to get a feel for just how muggy it can get here in Kansas City before you decide to make the move. All right, before we move on, my name's Kyle. I'm a licensed realtor in Kansas and Missouri, and if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, living, and playing right here in Kansas City, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell to make sure you're notified every time we release a new video. We get tons of calls from people who are moving to Kansas City every single day, and we absolutely love it. So if you're considering a move to Kansas City, shoot us an email at info@movingtokc.net, and we would love to assist you. All right, we got back-to-back weather topics, and this one is a little bit different from the humidity and the extreme weather that we get. And when you think about the Midwest and extreme weather, the first thing that comes to mind for a lot of people is tornadoes. Now look, we do get tornadoes here in the Kansas City metro area. When you look at the statistics, it's more likely to hit in the rural parts of Kansas and Missouri, but we do get tornadoes within the metro area. So it's definitely something you want to consider. And most of the houses here in Kansas City have basements. So that's really what the basements are for, is to take shelter when we have severe weather. Just a few weeks ago, we didn't have a tornado, but we had kind of like a microburst where we had 100-mile-an-hour straight line winds, and there were a ton of uprooted trees that fell on houses and damaged the gutters, soffits, fascia, punctured holes in the roof. So it's a real thing to be concerned about here in the Midwest. Now, in the winter, we also get extreme cold and freezing rain. So that's my literal worst favorite part of the year here in Kansas City, is the winter time, because of how cold it gets. So again, if you're considering moving to Kansas City and you're not used to the cold, you might want to reconsider, because Kansas City gets really, really cold. Okay, something that I don't really care for about Kansas City is that we are landlocked. We don't have mountains. We don't have the ocean. We have a lot of lakes. I've talked about that a lot on our channel. I love going to the lake, but it doesn't replace the ocean. I absolutely love going to the beach and going to the ocean. Now, I will say that since the new terminal opened here in Kansas City, a lot of these vacation destinations are more accessible. We have more direct flights, and we're only 3 hours from either coast. So if you want to take a trip, I always try and get out of town in February or the middle of winter to kind of break up that cold season and get my beach therapy in. But if you're gonna have a hard time not seeing mountains or ocean on a regular basis, then Kansas City is probably not gonna be for you. The next one on our list is the hospitality of the people here in Kansas City, and that can be looked at as a positive or a negative. People here are very welcoming and friendly, which sounds great, right? Well, it depends on whether you're an extroverted or an introverted person and where you're coming from in the country, because if you're coming from the East Coast where people are not very hospitable, it's going to be jarring coming to the Midwest and experiencing that Midwestern hospitality. Now, I absolutely love it. I love how friendly people are. It makes it super easy to go out and strike up a conversation and just get to know people a little better. For the most part, I would say that this is perceived as a good thing about Kansas City, is how welcoming our city is and how friendly the people are. The next one that gets brought up a lot is how car-centric Kansas City is. So we don't have a lot of public transportation options, and we have one of the worst urban sprawls in the entire country. In fact, I was doing a little bit of research, and for every 1,000 residents, there is 1.2 miles of freeway. We have a lot of interstates, we have a lot of highways, and for the most part, people are bound to their cars, especially if you live outside of downtown Kansas City, because things are just really spread out here. In fact, Kansas City ranks among the highest in the country for their urban sprawl. So instead of building up like a lot of cities do, they're building out, and we have a lot of land to spread out, and for the most part, people want to have their space. Now, for me, I live close to downtown, and I like living closer to people, in community with people, and that's just my prerogative. But I understand the other side of it as well, wanting to have your own space and, you know, live on maybe a half an acre, which we have a lot of options for that. But for the most part, you're gonna have to drive pretty much everywhere. We do have a bus system, we do have a streetcar, but it only runs north and south, and it's getting extended, so it's gonna make parts of the city more accessible. But if you don't live in the urban core, well, you're gonna have to commute via car. Next on our list, bad for singles. Now, Kansas City, according to bestplaces.net, is the worst city for dating. So if you're single and you're considering moving to Kansas City, you definitely want to know that, and you probably researched and figured that out for yourself. And a couple of things that we've discussed already, the sprawl does not help with dating. Because everything is so spread out, it makes it harder to meet people. And Kansas City is kind of known as a high school sweetheart type of town. People have these really close friend circles, and they marry their high school sweetheart, and they don't really look elsewhere. So it's definitely something that you're gonna want to consider if you're a single person moving to Kansas City. And to that point, I often see posts on Reddit and Facebook of people who are trying to make new friends. So going back to the tight friendship circles, it's harder to meet new people here in Kansas City. But that's one great thing about working with our team, is we have the most social brokerage for real estate in Kansas City. We do several events throughout the year. That's just another reason to reach out to our team, because you're gonna have instantaneous relationships working with the Moving to KC team and Kansas City Realty. We're getting to the end of our list. This next one is affordability. Now, compared to other metropolitan areas, Kansas City is definitely more affordable. However, over the last few years, it's become less and less affordable. And depending on your situation, affordable is really relative. But for instance, in Kansas City, the average rent for a 900 square foot apartment is around $1,200 a month. And again, that is below the national average. The national average is around $1,500 a month. The median home price in Kansas City is $300,000, and that has been the same for the last 2 years in a row. So again, for me, coming from Denver, $300,000 is relatively affordable when you consider that the median house price in the Denver metro is $600,000. But it varies depending on what part of the city that you live in. For instance, Johnson County, which is on the Kansas side, the median house price is $457,000. But again, that's why you reach out to us, because we know all these micro markets, and we can jump on a Zoom call with you and really comb through the inventory, figure out what it is you're looking for, and find the absolute best place for you to live. All right, this next one is, we are a huge sports town. You can see behind me, that is Patrick Mahomes hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, and a lot of people think that because of Patrick Mahomes is why we're a sports town, but that's not the case. I mean, I grew up here, and that's really one of the main things to do growing up in Kansas City. I mean, we are known for our tailgating at Arrowhead. There's nothing else like it on earth, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but you know, look, Patrick Mahomes has definitely put a spotlight on Kansas City, but we just hosted the NFL draft here, which had a phenomenal turnout. We have Sporting KC, the Royals, who aren't doing very well right now, but they both won championships over the past decade. In addition, we have huge sports rivalries here in the collegiate level with the Kansas Jayhawks and the Missouri Tigers. And then we also have the first women's soccer stadium being built right here in Kansas City for the KC Current. So if you don't like sports, there are other things to do in Kansas City, but we are a sports town. So if you hate sports, well, Kansas City might not be the place for you. Now, coincidentally, the last two colors on this wheel are red and blue. And the second to last topic is politics. Now, I don't want to get too deep into it. Obviously, I'm not going to share my beliefs, but Kansas and Missouri are both red states. Kansas City, like most urban metros, leans blue. So we have people on both sides of the aisle here, and it can get a little heated, especially around election years. But for the most part, I don't see people letting their politics impact their relationships. Again, Kansas City is a very welcoming town and city, and people aren't in your face about their political stances. Ooh, confetti! Confetti for the border war. I actually did a video on Kansas City, Kansas versus Kansas City, Missouri. It makes it a little unique. It's actually interesting to me that St. Louis is very similar to Kansas City in that there's a state line that separates St. Louis, Missouri and St. Louis, Illinois. Interesting that the two biggest cities in the state of Missouri are both divided almost right down the middle by a state line. But for us, it's Kansas and Missouri, and people can get pretty passionate. Again, I mentioned just a moment ago that we have intense collegiate rivalries between the University of Kansas and the University of Missouri. And it used to be a lot more intense when Missouri was in the Big 12. They've since departed and gone to the SEC, but the border war still exists, and it goes beyond sports. I mean, people are passionate about living on the Missouri side, and for the most part, the people that live on the Missouri side, they are adamant about the fact that Kansas City, Missouri is the Kansas City. I mean, that's where the airport is. That's where the sports teams are, right? So it makes sense. And I grew up on the Kansas side, and now that I live on the Missouri side, I kind of get it. Like, I definitely have more pride living in Kansas City, Missouri than when I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. Now, part of that is that I just grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, and then I moved away in my early 20s. But since I've come back, I definitely do appreciate where I live a little bit more, but it's going to be up to you in deciding what makes the most sense for your family, and that is exactly what we're here for. So if you're considering moving to Kansas City and you just have no idea where to start, reach out to us, shoot us an email at info@movingtokc.net. What I do is set up a Zoom call with you. We pull up the map and really comb through these areas to find out what makes the most sense for you and your family. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to give this video the thumbs up. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and how YouTube ranks our videos, and subscribe to our channel as we're putting out new content every single week about eating, sleeping, living, and playing right here in Kansas City. I hope you enjoyed the 15 things that you need to know before moving to Kansas City. Until next time.